Welcome to the channel. Hi, this is Dominic. Nice to see you again, or yeah, welcome if you're here first time. Again, I'm Dominic. I'm a Zendesk consultant. I've been one for the past 8 years. I've been a Zendesk partner for the past 2 years. I have been subcontracted by Zendesk to work on various projects, and I'm here to share some of the knowledge I've gained throughout my years and my collaboration with Zendesk. Best practices and everything around Zendesk is, if you have any questions around that, I'm your guy. Today, we're going to continue the discussion about Zendesk setup from scratch, and we're finally going to get into Zendesk. Yay! So we've had quite a few meetings, well, not meetings, sessions, video recordings, where I went through the prerequisites that are needed for us to have a good setup and what a good setup implies, right? So before we start, consider subscribing or subscribe to this YouTube channel, so it helps my channel maybe reach other audiences as well, whoever is passionate about customer experience and yeah, specifically Zendesk. Also, if you want to see some special content, comment below. I'd be happy to look into it. So the way that this works, I talk about whatever it is that that specific day is going to be followed up on, like what I'm going to talk about during that day. Then I share my screen and I show you how to do things, and I go through best practices and why we're making some of the setups and the way that we're doing them. As I mentioned previously, today we're continuing the discussion about setting up your Zendesk from scratch, and we've had quite a few sessions, I think around 4 or 5, around how the process works, around how to fill out business requirements and why they're important, then how to collect business flows or use cases, which are also very, very important. And it's actually the building blocks of any functioning support system. And I went through some lessons on how to collect those. Then I advise you to get training. I showed you where you can log in and create an account and start a training with Zendesk. And after you've done that, you come back to this channel, and we have these sessions. You watch these sessions, boring as they might be, but yeah, these will help you have a clean. Yep, I'm out of focus. It will help you have a clean start with your Zendesk, and it's going to work well. You can scale it. You can onboard new team members, and you can have them, understand what is going on. So this methodology has been, I've been using it while working at Zendesk, and it's been quite helpful. And yeah, I've also perfected it with the experience I've gained throughout my 8 years of being a consultant around the Zendesk platform. So yeah, after business requirements and doing your training comes the discovery sessions, where we talk about how, all your use cases or your business flows, business cases, user journeys, however you want to call them, discuss those one by one. We have a few sessions around that. And then we reach the point where we have this meeting where we start talking about how to set up your Zendesk. Specifically, we talk about the people setup, right? So who are your users? Like who are going to be the people that you're going to be supporting? Who are going to be the agents who are going to support them? Your customers are very important, and we need to define if we have, for example, some special categories of your customers, some VIPs, if you offer, for example, support in multiple regions, then we need to have a classification for that in order to make sure that we offer support appropriately. So let me share my screen. We get this rolling and to show you where we are right now. If you've watched my previous sessions, you'll see that I marked with a checkbox everything. I know that I sometimes, sound like a broken record, because what I think is essential for you to do, I emphasize on, and maybe I repeat it a few times, but that's because I think it's very important for you to watch out for some of those details. And I also don't do video editing on these, because this is very reflective of how a meeting would be with me, right? So there are no takebacks in real life. So if I make a mispronunciation of a word, I just go back to it, I say it again, and then I continue the meeting, right? So this is what I'm trying to achieve here. So I also want to, do this educational content because I want to give back some of the information, and of course to, yeah, cement the information in my brain. So let me open my Evernote. So this is what I've talked about earlier. So where we are, we finished the discovery or learn phase where we learned about your business, what you're about, how you do things, why you do things, the more important question actually. And then, yeah, so we finished that. We went through the kickoff where I explained the process, and then your homework, business requirements, business flows. This is the most important one in my view. And then you had your training, and then discovery sessions around 2 or 3, or depends how large your business is. Usually it's 2 or 3. I've had up to 5 discovery sessions where we had to go through a lot of business flows and a lot of edge cases, a lot of complaints cases that needed special care to make sure that yeah, everything has been documented, and yeah, whoever joins the team at a later point will be in the loop with what's going on and how things have been set up based on what, why we do it, and then yeah, then there's also the Zendesk documentation setup. So yeah, discovery session. Now, yesterday we had the general walkthrough where we went through all the discovery sessions in process flows, right? So how those look like, which are yeah, essentially some mirror boards where we discuss like who are the different actors within a flow, and yeah, what business rules need to be created. And based on that, we go now, finally, we go into Zendesk and start with the people setup. So there's quite a lot of chats, quite a lot of things to discuss before we actually start working in Zendesk. So we want to do things right. We want to do things, we want to talk about things once, sorry, we want to talk about things twice or 3 times or 5 times, however many times it is necessary, and do them once, right? So we do them, we do the setup correctly, we do it right, and we don't have to revert back to it at a later point because we forgot some whatever detail because we were in a hurry, and yeah, we don't want to do things in an organized fashion. All right, so the way that this works with the people setup is I have a slide deck, which I'm going to be walking you through. And then after I talk about the slide deck, I'm going to remind you some of the things that you've learned in your training. This is a slide deck. Let me go, okay, here. Remind you some things that you've learned in the training. So we'll do a small repetition, and then I walk you through some best practices. Then we go into Zendesk and I show you how to create those. And then there's also a homework where, yeah, homework document, workbook where we collect exactly how we set up Zendesk in order for you to, again, have your processes documented and sitting in a centralized place where everyone can have access, can contribute, and see what's going on. Again, very valuable for your business to have. And I'm going to have a hydration break. Okay, so now the slide deck that we're looking at is for people design. So this is the second lesson, right? So this is your amazing company. That's your name. That's your company. Today is the 1st of December. So I've marked that in the date as well. So this is a slide deck which I usually use for most meetings. I modify it, of course, based on the customer's yeah, special use cases, because each company is different and each requires some small tweaks in order to, yeah, to reflect their exact setup. But essentially, I have used these normally for Zendesk setups. And yeah, so I'll just walk you through. I won't insist a lot on this because it's more important that we walk through how to do things in Zendesk. So people design phase workshop. So then meet the team. In this case, I had, yeah, it's me. And then there's also Paul, who is my colleague, and he's more technical than I am, and he's can assist you on other bits, which we'll be covering in another lesson. So this is the team. There would be another slide here presenting you, whoever it might be that we're having the chat with. This document I share with you after the conversation. And so now This one is the timeline. So we had some discovery sessions. So the design phase has, yeah, it depends on your company's size. Usually it has, it has 2 sessions. For example, for the discovery, again, I told you that sometimes when at a larger project, I had 5 meetings for discovery phases for the deep dive sessions of discussing business flows, and so the discovery sessions. Now we're here in the people design based on business use cases that we've covered in our previous lessons. Yeah, this is a deep dive, 2 hours. We'll see if we need that much. There's also required like an internal review where you have 2 days where you work on the different setups that you need to do. So I don't do these sessions. I do these sessions to empower you with knowledge so you can do things on your own. So you don't always have to depend on a consultant to be there for you. You save money because you can do things you can do things by yourself, and you have autonomy, and you're much more empowered to make changes whenever you want, because I am a firm believer in doing and learning, right? So I can go through these lessons and I can share a lot of information, but if you haven't had your training, you're not going to necessarily be on the same page, and you're not necessarily going to be able to do any of these changes yourself in the future, and you're going to be reliant on somebody like myself, which is not bad because I'd like to, I'm happy to do maintenance as well, but I do also want to be efficient. So I want you to, do things by yourself. Anyway, so we are here. Next is going to be the ticket design and workflows by channels, which is going to be quite a few, depends on channels, what channels you have, right? So in this case, we're going to go over on email and chat. You can also set up talk, so telephony system. You can also set up your API to send in tickets inside Zendesk. So that's, there's quite a lot of lessons on depending on the channels that you offer support on, business rules, and then the pre-launch. All right, so moving on. So today's agenda is going to be, I don't expect it to be 2 hours long, the duration. Usually it does last 2 hours, but in this case, since it's just going to be me talking about things, I also allow space for questions, and usually that adds up to 2 hours. This session can sometimes prolong into maybe a second session because there's a lot of things to set up, but normally it's just a 2-hour session about discussing everything around people. So objectives for the meeting is to understand how your teams are structured, how they work, and who your customers are. Okay, so then the topics that are going to be discussed, we are going to discuss roles and permissions, we're going to discuss groups, we're going to discuss brands, we're going to discuss schedules, organizations, users, and system settings for agents and for your customers. So we also discovery, so the input and output, discovery questions and workflows provided, which I'm going to be sharing with you. All right, so now I've covered this a little bit. So this is the sessions approach is that we have this deck, right, that we go through, and then we go into the system in Zendesk, and then we have a configuration workbook which is basically the homework. All right, so next slide, it's going to be about how to manage people and who are the key players inside Zendesk. So you have the end user types, right? So the end user types are your customers that your company offers support for, right? So your customers in Zendesk are called end users, and they can be spread out in different countries. They can all be in one market. They can be, they can be divided based on, for example, the region. They can be divided based on the products they buy. They can be divided based on maybe organizations that they are members of, or VIP customers. Depends how you have your entire customer base portioned. And then we have agent types. So agent types are essentially the team that is going to be supporting your customers, right? So these are people who are going to be working actively in Zendesk. They log into Zendesk. They are going to be able to offer support. These are usually the people that you need to pay the most attention to, because they are at the forefront of solving requests, and they understand usually the product, your product, much better than you do, because they're constantly facing issues that come directly at them as feedback from the customers. And then we have team leads and admin types. So these are members of your team as well, so your staff that is going to have elevated permissions to manage escalations or certain types of configurations and change control inside your Zendesk. And then there's the vendor type, or third parties that there are teams that you sometimes reach out to in order to support your customers. So these can be partners that, maybe, for example, if you do retail, for example, you have partners that do delivery and you want to keep them in the loop. For example, when there's a request, you want them to communicate with them and ask them various questions in order to help you solve the request for the customers. So there's also the notion of light agents for third parties, which light agents are a type of agents, and they can log into Zendesk, but they have very limited functionality available to them. Mostly they can just follow the ticket discussion, and they can also add a private comment, but that's it. They cannot publicly reply to your customers. All right. So the key sets in managing your people, right? So we discussed who your customers are, who your staff is going to be, and then the key sets. So these are going to be grouped into two separate divisions. So we have groups and organizations. So organizations are a collection of your users, right? So if you remember from your lesson, your training, you remember that you can organize, you can group your customers into organizations. So this is a way for you to to put people in one bucket, in one place, so you can offer support to them. Maybe you can also create business rules based on organizations and so on. Users can belong to multiple organizations, so agents can also be part of these organizations, right? Because they are staff members and they are allowed to be part of your groups, of your organizations. Using organizations is optional, and we're going to talk about why this is optional. We're going to go a bit deeper into how you can use organizations, and you can decide if you need them or not. If you use organizations, however, it is very important because you can keep track of what those organizations are requesting, right? And you can create reports based on what these organizations are requesting. So some use cases, for example, for organizations that I did touch on briefly a bit earlier on was, for example, VIPs, who is a VIP customer and who is a standard customer. So a VIP is obviously if somebody is member of an organization that is considered VIP, we can create some business rules to maybe give a higher priority to the tickets, or maybe assign them to directly to a team leader, or whatever the use case might be about. We can use organizations to group users by the location or the language that they're using, and so if you're a company that offers support in multiple countries and your users speak different languages, they want to receive support in that language, which is advisable. It's a best practice. So users do like to receive support in the language that they that they belong to, the language that you are selling your product to for them. So very important to keep in mind. You can also use organizations to segment your users to have access to your help center. So your help center, if you, for example, want to offer, you can offer content to your users, let's say some general content that everyone has access to, and you can create, for example, user segmentation in your whenever you create a knowledge-based article, and you can say, okay, so members of the organization VIP can see these tickets, and why? Because maybe there's some special documentation that because they have a VIP account with you, they get access to some more information, and they have some extra features which are only available to them. So only if they're available to that organization will they be able to see it in the in your guide. All right. So now this is a way for you to keep your customers organized. Now, for your agents, there's a much similar approach, but it's just called groups. So in groups, only agents are able to be members. So groups are essentially departments, right? So if you have departments, you can have in your company, you have a customer service, you have customer care, you have billing, you have financing, you have whatever departments you have. In Zendesk terminology, these are groups, right? So we can collect agents only, so no end user, right? Based on the criteria of those agents that those agents have in common. All agents must be assigned to at least one group in order to be, functioning Zendesk agents. But they can be member of multiple end users. Oh, sorry, multiple groups, right? So an agent can be part of only one group, but they can be part of multiple groups. Groups can also be used to support organizations. So a use case example for groups is by the level of support escalation. For example, you can create groups, all right? So you have first line, which is the users that deal with the most common questions. Then there's tier 2, which agents with more experience can deal with. And then let's say agents that are a member of tier 3, for example, they can handle compliance, they can handle like very complex escalation types of issues, which is compliance, for example. And another use case, for example, would be expertise by product or by topic that is being supported. By location and language, it depends on how you have these structured in your company. I do expect you to know these things and have an idea. But if not, we can discuss them together, of course. Okay, so now moving on and taking this a little bit further. You have custom roles, right? So all of these, for example, agents. So all of your agents can have different roles within the system, and it's very important. This is mostly available for custom roles are mostly available for enterprise accounts, right? So Zendesk accounts that have enterprise enabled. And these are important for a number of reasons, right? So admins, for example, can have control over nearly all aspects of Zendesk configuration. So except the billing information, which is left for another type of admin, which is the account owner. Then agents that are assigned to solve tickets and interact with customers to resolve whatever the customer has reached out with. They can be granted other actions on tickets that, like they could, for example, merge tickets. They could manage end user profiles to change, contact information, for example, add or edit macros and views. Macros are templates in Zendesk. Views are queues or folders where agents are able to see the workload that they are dealing with. Team leaders, they should have more permission than regular agents, and they could access, for example, the Zendesk Explorer, which is the reporting tool from Zendesk. They can add and edit dynamic content, this is for multi-language support. They can manage channels and extensions potentially. So whatever channels that you offer support in, and they have more visibility on tickets. And then light agents, as we've covered this a little bit in my discourse from a little bit earlier. Light agents can have limited permissions, but they can stay informed about tickets, and when needed, add a private comment to ticket. So a ticket commented by light agents are private, and including the first comment of any tickets they create, right? So they have limited functionality available to them inside Zendesk, and light agent roles are used mostly for third parties. And yeah, these are come with they come with a purpose of using these accounts for people that are not necessarily part of your ticket solving team. More likely they have the on and off presence when they are needed, right? There's a reason, for example, for light agents are included in the enterprise account. You have a certain number of light agent seats. If you are on professional, you can buy these. They're considerably cheaper than regular accounts. So now moving on, discussing a little bit about custom roles and the design principles. So in this case, you have to be very specific, very clear on the custom roles that you create. So you have to simplify by defining global role structure consistent across all brands. We'll discuss brands in a bit, and consider adjustments as needs arise. You have to keep in mind and create a flat structure for your administrators and have a single agent role that allows for editing tickets, accessing tickets within agents groups, merging tickets, editing personal views and macros, or viewing reports. There's a very good reason for this, is because if you allow many people to be, for example, have administrator roles, then they each to their understanding of the Zendesk platform, they make changes, but they are not necessarily aware of the impacts that those changes have on teams that are working on Zendesk. And I've seen this happen countless times, where you want to, where agents have had too much permissions with having the admin role available to them, and they made changes which they thought were appropriate, but which may have solved, like in the very short term, or a small issue, but then it affected the system in the long run. All other permission reside with admins to ensure centralized build and maintenance of core workflows. So yeah, this is a best practice that you, for example, whenever creating a admin role. So if you function in multiple countries, for example, you only allow editing permissions, for example, to one administrator in the area. So for example, in Germany, you have an admin responsible for changes to workflows and to tickets and ticket properties and end user properties, etc. And then if in another region, you have another administrator. And it is good practice to have a way for agents to ask to request for changes, and then the agent can collect these change requests, and then maybe have an internal discussion with other administrators or with management, and decide if those changes should go through. Generally, please listen to your agents and always take into consideration the changes that they're requesting, because usually you have to be mindful that they know the most about your customers and what hurts them or what pains that they have. So if it's to the benefit of the customer, yes, please implement those and take them into consideration, of course. I also offer here like some more information like about custom roles. You can go ahead and read some more articles on the Zendesk forum, and so on the Zendesk support side. Now moving on, go to custom roles examples, and then we're going to jump into Zendesk and show you how to build those. So customer service agent, for example, the permissions they have play views only, public and private ticket. They can only add public and private ticket comments. So about the play feature, this is when an agent, for example, we don't want them to for them to cherry pick, and this happens quite often. The agents don't like some certain type of tickets because they have difficulty. They're more difficult to solve, and then they just skip those and leave them out for somebody else to deal with, which is not necessarily very cool. So this is why we have this customer service agent role created, which means that the agents are going to go through tickets one by one through this with this play feature, and they just can't cherry pick. So they, depending on the criteria where we decide that the tickets end up in the agent's view, yeah, they just go through tickets one by one with the criteria that we decide for them, in the order that we decide for them. Public and private ticket comments, right? So they can have a public comment to answer the customer. They can have private comments to talk amongst themselves and ask questions to other team members who maybe can help them. They can potentially merge tickets, right? So somebody sends an email, but that they also call you or they request a chat. And it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. You haven't gotten back to me. And then the agent can just look for the ID of that ticket and just merge it. This is optional, like edit and delete user profiles. Not necessarily very advisable, but yeah, it sometimes happens that it yeah, it happens that you do want to allow your agents this permission. Customer care specialist, for example, so they can do everything that the customer service agent can do, but they can also see views, for example, extra. They can provide more flexibility in prioritizing tickets. They can create personal views, and they can maybe create and edit personal group and group macros. So templates for themselves to use, and maybe for the team members to use. Customer care manager. So this role can do everything that the customer care specialist and service agent can do, with the addition of being able to delete tickets, modify groups and organizations, manage business rules like triggers, automations, SLAs, and then the administrator who can, yeah, modify agent properties, extra, and everything else that is included in the settings. And now comes usually the time where I ask for your, I ask for, if you have any questions, and we discuss this, and we take notes. And now comes the time where I jump inside Zendesk and I talk you through how to, how that goes and how to create all of these. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in a second. All right, I'm back. I had a quick break, and so we're going to jump right back into Zendesk. Well, not back. We're going to jump into Zendesk. And I know some of you are going to be like, oh, finally. Yeah, I know the feeling. I just want us to do things well. So let's share my screen. Okay, so you see this slide deck. All right, so going into the user and people setup. So I'm in Zendesk. So right now I'm in my views, and I'm going to go to my admin. So I have my people already selected. So I'm in here, manage people, and we're going to go through people, user fields, organizational fields, and a little bit about brands, and yeah, some setups. So this is going to be moving away from this interface. Zendesk is working on updating a new, let's say, way of editing these features inside Zendesk and modifying them. And it's still not done. So the reason why I still do it in here is because this one looks better and I like it, just that I have to perform some actions, I have to go back in here because, yeah, not all the functionality has been transferred to this new members area, which, yeah, Zendesk presents here. I don't know exactly when this is going to be rolled out, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it until we can do it, yeah, fully. So, but until then, we're just going to do it here. All right, so people, right? So first things first that we have here available is going to be, I'm going to be able to add a user, a group, and an organization, and we're going to do all. So let's add a user. So right now, name, let's call this guy DOM test for call. DOM test for call? No, that's very uninspired. DOM test people session. All right, so this is going to be an end user. I'm just going to see if I am going to have an end user, right? So one of my clients, I'm just going to consider that I need to create this user from scratch. And so let's see, what email do I use? Let's use this one, dominic@gmail.com, which doesn't exist, but doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and create this user. Right? So this is going to be my user profile. So the user profile for the end user, right? So I can see here that I have, what user type it is. Is it an end user or is it a staff member? So you have to keep in mind that you need to get used to Zendesk terminology. End user is your customer, and then staff member are going to be your agents and team leaders and admins. So yeah, you have to start getting used to this. Access. All right, so this is very, very important for our discussions about everything else. So what implies groups, for example, and organization. So the access is going to be can view and edit own tickets only, or can view tickets from users org, right? So this means that only the tickets that have been assigned to this user I'm going to be able to see them, or tickets from my own organization. So remember from the lesson from earlier that we can group our customers into organizations. And when a customer logs into the guide or help center, or where we keep our knowledge base, I hope if you're not familiar, we're going to have a lesson about that. But so when they log in, they are able to see either the tickets that they have submitted, or we can opt for the option of allowing them to see tickets from the organization that they're a member of. And this is especially useful if you are, for example, you want to allow users to maybe check to see if somebody else has submitted the same request, and if somebody else has to submitted the same request, maybe you have already gotten back to them and they read that request and they maybe don't send another, right? So it's a way for you to deflect some of the tickets, and yeah, it's a great tool. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. So now my primary contact, so my email is going to be, just like a generic email. This is unverified, means that, the ownership of the ticket has not yet been confirmed by the user. Poor bastard that has this email probably is going to be very confused. And then I can add an additional contact. So I can have an additional email. I can add their Twitter, or I can add a phone number. If I want. So usually sometimes users have 2 email addresses, and I add them. I can add a tag to the user, test tag, test. So this means that whenever this user is going to submit a request, this specific user, all the tickets that are going to be created by this user are going to carry this tag. So you have to keep in mind how that works. Organization, I can add the user to an organization. I can add them to a user segment, as I mentioned earlier. By user segment, I am able to provide access to different content inside the knowledge base. I can change the language for the user. I can change the time zone. This one, let's make it Berlin. We don't see it. Well, doesn't matter. And I can add some additional details. I can add some notes. And these are all user fields, so custom user fields. So these are a system provided by the system, and these are added as custom user fields. But we're going to get into that in a bit. So this is how we add a user, a customer, or an end user. Now let's go ahead, and another way to do it is to add them from here, from this plus. So I can add a ticket, a user, organization, or I can search. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a user, another user, and this guy is going to be a staff member. So Dominic test agent. All right, so their email, let's see, Dominic, another test at Gmail. Hopefully this one doesn't exist. Staff member, what role do I want to give them, right? So remember we talked about roles, and we're going to get into the roles and what kind of permissions you have with this. So do I want them to be administrator, advisor, agent, guide content? So I just want to have, for example, I want them to be a member of my team that only does content management, for example, or I want them to be a team lead, or this is a test role, which we'll create another one. And this is a light agent, which is also built in. So let's choose team lead, add them. It's going to be, the profile is going to be very similar. However, I'm going to have a slightly different approach, slightly different information in here. Why? Because I can also remember when I told you that the end users are going to be members of organizations. Well, agents or staff members need to be part of at least one group in order to be fully functional agent. So in this case, the group that the agent has been assigned to is group name. This is obviously a test group, and the reason it has been auto completed in here is because this is the default group. The default group, we're going to go into that in just a bit. I have some more information here. For example, the alias of this user, I maybe don't want to have this name like Dominus Test Agent. I want to be called, let's say, Pinky. I don't know what kind of company this is. I obviously hope that it's you're going to be more creative than I am, and maybe put real names. Just put like maybe Dominic, not Dominic Test Agent. Signature. We're going to get into the signature in a bit. So I'm not going to go over that right now. So if I want to have forwarding, to add a number, again, special contact, if I want to have additional contacts, and then all the fields that a regular user would have. And I have added this user to amazing user segment. I'm not going to go into the details, but they have been assigned to this user segment by default. This is going to be these are going to be user fields, so custom user fields that I have added by hand. And then I have also skills. So I can do skill-based routing inside Zendesk. So if you offer support in multiple regions, I can create, for example, skills for my agents, and I can have, for example, French or English skills. So this guy, for example, has English skills, and I am able to then filter tickets based on the skills of the agent. So it's good to add, it's good to work with it as well. I don't necessarily recommend starting out with it, but it's worth exploring. I'm going to have a separate lesson about this, because in itself, this is a feature from Zendesk which requires its own setup and discussion. And I won't go into the details here, but this is what it does, right? So filter tickets based on the skill level of skills that the agent can have. And Zendesk doesn't necessarily recommend that you use very advanced skills. Rather start with languages and then go from there. Like, for example, if the agent has different product skills, it's also useful to use them in that sense. All right, so now back to my people area. So I've added an end user, I have added an agent. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a group. I have to give it a name. My group, let's say my German group. Do I want to make this but German group? Do I want to make this a default group? No, I already have a default group and I want to leave it like that. I can add a description, and I can also add different various team members in this group. I'm just going to add this guy. All right, so my German group is here. It has been created by me. And so this is how it works. We've added a group. Now I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add an organization, much in the same way. So I add an organization, I give it a name, German organization. And now, very important is that, for example, I have an organization that, for example, I offer support in German, and this organization, usually I have two companies that I support, and let's say it's going to be I don't know, Vorwerk from Deutschland, right? So let's say all companies that write from vorwerk.de, I know. So an agent, sorry, when an end user writes to me and they write from whatever contact email address they have at vorwerk.de, they automatically get added to this organization. So I can add here multiple organizations. So I can leave a space, and the other partner company that I offer support in Germany is maybe Trade Republic.de. So I know that, for example, whenever somebody writes to me from these two these two domains, that they end up in this organization. Save. And here I have my organization that has been created for me. Again, it has some tags, test. So much like with the end user, if somebody writes and they are a member of this organization, this tag carries over to the tickets. So be very mindful that whenever you, if you play around with tags, be mindful of how many you create, because sometimes it can become overbearing. You have to have something which is representative and very focused on what exactly is relevant for that organization, right? So you don't have to go overboard with adding tags, because again, whenever a ticket is created by someone in this organization, it carries over the tags. And then I can see the domains that this organization supports, that this organization is meant for, actually. And then I can go in group, and I can assign directly to the German group to offer support for this particular organization. Now I can set up those permissions to see tickets based on, exactly like I do on the user level. So, or users of this organization can view tickets only, or they can view all organization tickets. And in this case, this overrides the settings for the users on a personal level. I can have some details, some notes, and these are organizational fields, which this is a field that has been added extra. So this is not a system field, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that in just a minute. All right, so I have added a user, I have added a group, I have added an organization. Now I can add a role. So for adding a role, I want to show you the roles that exist currently. So usually in Zendesk, we normally use like the let's say we don't go overboard with using custom roles, and we don't recommend that. Why? Because the more roles you have, the more management is required on your end. So you have to do more maintenance to maintain these agent roles. So we use the default. Apologies. We use the default in Zendesk, and we sometimes create some custom roles as well if the business requires it. But that's depending on what we exactly need to do. So I have an advisor, I have an agent role, I have a contributor, guide content, light agent, team lead. So let's go ahead and see what an agent role can do. So I can go ahead and edit it. So can edit tickets within their groups, right? So this is their, let's say, the main thing to take away from here. So the role name, the description, all right. So tickets. So what accessibility level do I offer for tickets? So in this case, I can offer this agent the ability to see tickets assigned to themselves, and that's it, nothing else. Requested by end users in this user's organizations, in this agent's organizations, right? So this agent this is very important to remember and to decide on if, for example, we offer access to tickets on the organizational level or on the group level, which is this one, all within agents group. So if an agent is a member of one group, for example, the German group, as I've made that test account from earlier, they can only see, for example, tickets within that group and nothing else, right? So if, for example, this agent is required to see tickets from France because they also speak French. If a ticket is assigned to them, they won't be able to see it, and they will complain. They obviously will receive an error message, and then an administrator will have to be take into account that either they can make this agent a member of the French group as well, or or they, for example, we opt for to offer visibility to tickets requested by end users in the organization, or we offer the possibility to see all tickets, which is usually reserved for team leaders or for administrators, actually, which is best case scenario or best practice as well. Administrators are able to see all of these tickets. I also have an additional option here, so agent can assign tickets to any group. So this is very useful because, for example, if you have, for example, a structure of like a tier structure inside your Zendesk, and that's how you offer support. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, whatever. If a ticket, like the agents normally in tier 1, go through all of the tickets, like all tickets go through level 1, and then level 1 will escalate to either level 2 or level 3, depending on the type of request. So in this case, for example, if you offer support in a tier structure, then it is recommended that agents could assign tickets to any group, because in that case they know that, okay, I'm not a member of the other groups, like from tier 2 or tier 3, or finance or billing or delivery, whatever. But I am able to see them in a dropdown and select it and assign it, right? So this is also very important to keep in mind. So now editing ticket properties, I don't want this irregular agents to delete tickets. I want to reserve this ability for a team leader or maybe an administrator. Team leader is fine. That's very good practice. I can allow them to merge tickets because I want to, if ticket comes from multiple channels, the same request comes from multiple channels, you just merge them. Do I want to allow them to edit ticket tags? In this case, yes. So I want them to be able to add or remove tags. And so this is very, very useful to have. So agents without this ability will still be able to edit the tags on new tickets as well on the tickets where they are the requester, but that's where it ends. So commenting permissions, yes. In this case, I want them to have public and private comments. I want to manage ticket fields. No, I want to leave that only for either team leads or for administrators. I recommend that you leave it for administrators because it's if everyone gets access to do this, make sure that they have experience. Otherwise, they will create a big mess. And I've seen this countless times. And many projects come in on my plate with the request to optimize their system because it's cluttered, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work because a lot of business rules have been created by people without the proper skills to make those changes or to add those changes. Manage ticket forms, again, no. Again, this is only reserved for administrators and maybe in this case, team leaders, but not for now. Okay, so now what about the people access? So end user profile access, for these agents, they can only read that information. So they can see the name, email, contact, additional user fields, etc. They will only be able to see it for only able to see the I apologize. They will only be able to see it, see their profile, and that's it. I can also add and edit with the within their organization, right? So users within the organization that the agent is, they can edit, but in this case we don't add that. privilege, and then add and edit, delete for all end users. So again, give more permission to the agents to do this. View user profile lists. I do allow that for agents. Manage user fields. No, this is again something which is reserved for team leaders or administrators, preferably. Manage organizational field. Same thing. We're going to go over how to create user fields and organizational fields and why those are important. Channels. Manage channel extensions. No, we don't want to do that. Manage Facebook pages. No, again, it's something which a higher level permission should be allowed to do. Agent workflow. So views permission. So in this case, they can add, edit personal, group, and global views. I don't necessarily recommend this. I would just want them to see the views that a team leader or an administrator creates, because again, I have seen so many cases where where companies had 30, 50, 100, 150 views. I'm like, oh my God, you are only able to see as an agent, you're only able to see 12 on your page inside Zendesk when you log in. So why on earth would you create so many? Because it's there's obviously every business is different, and you can obviously tailor the views so everyone can see whatever is relevant. But if things get too complicated, then yeah, it's not necessarily coherent anymore. So see views only. I would allow them to add and edit personal views. Why? Because everyone works slightly different. Not everyone's the same, and this should be celebrated, not necessarily condemned. And productivity stems from doing your own thing, right? And being able to do your own thing. So I'd recommend that you do allow the ability for your agents to create personal views, right? So the personal views only appear to that specific agent, and they can't bother anyone else. So if they make a mess, then that's their mess, but nobody else is going to be affected. But it also improves productivity. So then macro permissions. So add and edit personal macros in the same mindset of allowing people, empowering them to work the way that they want to. And then you can just opt for applying macros only, or add and edit personal group macros, and then add and edit personal group and global macros. But in this case, yeah, we leave this for the higher tier. Access dynamic content. So yes, to add translations, for example, this is dynamic content is used for the for offering support in multiple languages. Manage contextual workspaces. This is going to be a lesson in itself. So a contextual workspaces is a way for you to triage special business rules like macros and forums and apps that are only, for example, specific for the German market. And I have, for example, 5 forums and 50 macros that are only relevant for the German speaking community, and for my agents that speak German. So I just want them to see only those macros and yeah, suggest those specific macros. So that's what contextual workspaces is about. Contribute to side conversation. Again, not again, but side conversation is a way for you to reach out to third parties, right? So as the name suggests, is a side conversation in a ticket. You are able to initiate a conversation via email or via Slack or via a child ticket and involve a third party without necessarily granting them access to the ticket, which is perfect because when they get back to you, you see the conversation, and then you can just bring that update to the customer and solve the ticket. Business rules, manage business rules. This is, as I mentioned earlier, recommended to be only handled by admins, and each region should have its own admin. Manage guide. Yes. Do we want them to allow them to create and manage articles? Yes. The more the merrier. It's very important for agents to be able to create knowledge-based articles, because the more documentation you have for your product, the more you can encourage self-serve. So when your customers self-serve, then you deflect tickets, then you reduce agent time, you reduce costs essentially. So very important. Analytics, yes, they can see reports, not create reports nor manage permissions. So for reports. So this is also for higher tier. A view talk dashboard. Yeah, this is a really nice dashboard, which if you have a talk, then it's very important. So in this case, I'm going to save it. And yeah, so right now, I encourage you to go ahead and create your own roles, add your own users, and yeah, and make that, tailor this to however you want it. So let me just walk you through, for example, being able to import in bulk your users or your organizations. So you are able to either add them by hand, as we've done earlier, or you can also do a bulk import. A bulk import is a CSV file which contains up to 2,000 users at a time. So if you have more than that, you have to repeat the phase as many times as needed. But in that, in that CSV file, you have, if you follow this link, you'll see that you have some documentation on how to do it. It's pretty straightforward. You also have a sample data. So yeah, which is pretty straightforward. It's somewhere around here. Where are you? Yeah, this is how it should be formatted, but you also have the downloadable files, and here it is. It's in Excel as well as in CSV. So I will link these. I will link these as well, but you can also find them yourself. So you can do the same for organizational or uploading organizations, but this is if you decide to use organization. So this is a discussion to be had on your own to understand if and why organizations are going to be useful for you or not. Not all companies are finding them useful. Okay, so alrighty, let's see where we are. Okay, so okay, groups, design principle for groups. Okay, I think we went ahead and created some things on top, and that's not a problem. What I want to do now is I want to show you how to create user fields and organizational fields, and then we'll jump back in the deck and continue our presentation from there. So user fields are fields that will appear against the user profile, so your customer profile, and also, of course, your agent profile. So you can add these in bulk as well. I'm going to go and add a new field. I'm able to add a drop-down, a text field, multi-line, checkbox, numeric field, decimal, date, and a regex. This is also very cool to have data that, that is sensitive inside Zendesk. So capture input that verifies according to a regular expression that you define. So this is also very, very important. I'm going to add a text field, and I'm going to call it address because I need to have an address for my users. So address, and then text field, and I save it. All right, cool. So now, if I go to a user now, I go to people, and I go to end users, for example, and I want to look at the person that I just added here earlier, which is that user, the end user that I added, which is, let's say, Dominic CX at Gmail, that end user that I have created. Let's see where they are. Here they are. Dom test people session. Wow, so creative. And here it is, the address, right? So remember we added a custom user field, which, yeah, here it is. So whenever I add it, they come up in the user profile in here, and I can add my address, which is my address number 4, Berlin, Germany. Nice. Now I'm going to, save this, and it has now been saved. It has given me a message. And now, yeah, against this user, I can see that I have in here, I have an organization, which I can create an organization for this user, but I don't want to create an organization for them. I want to just add them to the organization that I decide, which in my case, it's going to be the one that we have created, German organization that we've created earlier, right? So I have added them to this organization. And now I'm going to go, oh, my mouse isn't working. What's wrong with you? Okay, it's back. And I'm going to go to organizational fields. And I'm going to add an organizational field. So in this case, I'm going to add a drop down and I'm going to say if this is a regular customer or they're a VIP. So let's see. Type of user. And there's going to be a drop down, field values. This is either a VIP or, so it's a VIP organization or it's like a regular. And the third one is going to be medium or low tier. Save. All right, so now I go back to my people area. Actually, let me go back to this guy. So I'm in the German organization. I'm going to refresh my screen because this is very important. Let me close out my other tabs and just keep this guy who I'm interested in. So again, very easily navigate to the organization of the user here. All right, so this is the organization. And now I have two extra fields in here, which are going to be relevant for me. So you see the field that we've added before, type of user, here we go. In this case, this guy, this organization is going to be a VIP because why not? Okay. So I have walked you through adding an end user or a customer, adding an agent or staff member, adding user field, adding organizational fields, how to edit custom roles and how to create custom roles if you want. And what else did we go through? Adding a group, adding an organization. So now let's go back to the slide deck so we can discuss a little bit more about groups. So design principles about groups to keep in mind. It's, yeah, use groups to assign tickets and grant access to views and macros. So remember earlier that we discussed about agents, for example, having the ability to see tickets within the groups that they are members of or organizations they are members of. Best practice from my view is to use groups instead of organizations, but it all comes down to how you have your user base structured. So in terms of the agents, use the group level to assign tickets and grant access to views and macros. And for example, access to views and macros is only done by the group level, not the organizational level. So the reason why I advise to lean towards groups is because this is how Zendesk is structured, and being structured the way that it is, it's using, for example, groups to allow access to the users, right? To agents to see tickets, like based on the groups that they are members of. You can also just manage that through, for example, visibility for views and macros, because again, views and macros don't have the capability to offer visibility for organizations, right? So it's a little bit better and easier to manage if you keep everything structured at the group level, not the organizational level. So that's why some companies don't opt to use organizations. It gets a little bit trickier because, for example, I've been working with this really big company, a financial company, fintech from Germany, and they have 300 plus agents, probably to 350 now, and they have they are active in multiple countries, and they have an organization in Germany, one in Austria, one in France, one in Great Britain, one in Italy, one in Ireland, etc. They have for 11 countries, and it's it takes a lot of maintenance to, for example, assign the agents to the organizations, and also on a group level to make sure that the agents are a part of the right groups to see the right macros and the right views to be able to have visibility of the tickets. So that is an edge case. Obviously, if your team is not that large, then you don't need to worry. So within a, now continuing, within a brand, when in doubt, opt for more granularity, right? So I'm going to go over some principles on how to create the group names. And brands are a way for you to, for example, to be active in multiple countries. And the difference is that with groups, brands, for example, you are able to, like this company does, for example, it has a brand for Germany, one for Austria, one for Ireland, one for Italy, one for Spain, etc., one for France, and so on. And they have different knowledge bases for it, so you can have different brandings and for your knowledge base, right? So not all the content is relevant in Germany that is relevant in Germany, and as well is relevant in Spain or in France, right? So you want to have different content as well. And in some cases, it might be that some stores, for example, that sell in different parts of the world, they have a brand name in Germany, and then they have the same company acting in England, for example, or in France or in Spain with different names, because for whatever reason the company's name is different in the in the different countries, but the umbrella company is the same, so it's the same company. More groups equals agents only see appropriate tickets. So this is very important to know that, for example, the more granular you go with your groups, the more visibility, the more easier it is to create views. So views is a way for you to, categorize or filter the tickets that the agents need to see in order to work. So if you opt for more groups, then, for example, you will be able to have less views, and we'll get into the views lesson in tomorrow's lesson, or in the next video anyway. So broader groups, for example, will encourage proliferation of custom views. So if you have, for example, Germany, for example, they have one group for Germany, one group for Spain, one group for England, one group for France, etc. It's going to encourage, for example, a proliferation of very custom views, which means that you are going to have to create more views. So imagine that, for example, in Germany, you have an order department, like an order request, and then you have billing requests, then you have delivery requests, then you have product inquiries, for example. So if like all of these, for example, types of requests would require their own views, rather, for example, you would be able to create groups for each of these, right? So you'd have orders Germany, you'd have billing Germany, you'd have product inquiry Germany, and then you'd have the same for UK, same for France, and so on. So yeah, it's good to keep in mind this detail. Escalation workflow. So establish a leadership group for leaders and managers who may be involved in escalation flows, but don't necessarily live and breathe in Zendesk. So you always have to keep in mind that there's always something that will need to be addressed by higher management. So your agents are not always going to be capable of solving everything inside Zendesk, and they will need to talk to someone who is able to handle compliance, for example, to smoothen somehow the client's, let's say, irritation, because that happens. It's normal. It's customer service. It's your customers are bound to sometimes be irritated, and you have to be mindful of escalation flows, right? And you have to be mindful of how that takes place. Like, is it going to be an escalation group? Like, it's going to be only tier 3 people who have the most experience, who are managers, who are able to make decisions, and so on. There's also, of course, more details around groups in here as well. And then some group naming convention examples. So the reason why we're going through this lesson or having this page is because you cannot create hierarchy in groups in Zendesk. So This is, if you will, it's a downside, but then again, it's also a plus, because it requires less maintenance than if you would have, for example, a hierarchy. And in this case, for example, you can have the brand name, you have the functional role of the business, and then the specialization or location. So you can have, for example, let's call it a brand is going to be, for example, whatever it's called in that country, right? So let's say in Germany, it has a specific name. For example, it's going to be Apple Finance Germany, right? So you're going to have, for example, yeah, Apple customer service, for example, Apple CRC support UK, right? So the benefits of this, it's consistent and it's going to be easy to use, and it's no day-to-day shuffling is going to be needed. So this is very important to keep in mind because of the lack of hierarchy. Have to be mindful of how to create, for example, groups, and the naming convention is very important. And I need to stress about this again. So the more granular your groups are, the more easier it is to set up your views, right? So your views, your queues, your folders, which your agents use to filter tickets that they need to be working on every day. So now let's go back to Zendesk, because I do want to walk you through some this aspect of a group, for example. So when you add a group, again, Apple CS Germany, right? So the brand, the function, and then the localization. This guy created. Now, I wanted to walk you through brands because I did not do that. So right now I have 5 brands. I have reached my limit, but I can, yeah, I don't want to deactivate them right now. So I can go ahead and create brands for myself. And in this case, for example, I add the brand, I add the subdomain, add a logo, I add a signature. So this agent signature, and why I wanted to go through this right now is the signature, because we didn't cover this a little bit earlier, but we're going to be doing it now. So the agent signature can be, for example, something which we add in here. It's going to be agent signature, which I will show you how that looks like in the agent profile. And I can add some custom information here, like let's say Apple Inc., right? And then the agent signature. So I'm going to have to add a host mapping if I want, but right now I don't. I save this. So the agent signature is always going to be the agent signature, and then followed by this. So this is the name of the company, let's say. And then I go to, for example, an end user profile, an agent profile, I apologize. So in people, in agents, I pick one of my agents. It's going to be this guy, a team leader. And this is my signature. So let's call this, how do I call this guy? So this is going to be, the signature is going to be, usually recommendation is to have the function. So for example, team lead, and I want to say, I don't want to have I want to have the alias team lead and customer service. Right. So now whenever this agent replies, we're going to, depending on the brand that they are a member of, right? They're going to pick up the signature, and it's going to add the name of the company at the bottom. So what I've shown you here, it's going to add this name. So it's going to pick up that signature that I added, right? So team lead for customer service, and then it's going to add the name of the company. All right. Okay. Now, So now it's your turn. This is what I showed you with brands. So now for the design principles of brands, for example, one of the most important elements to decide, right? There's single brand or multi-brand instance. So this is again down to how you have your company structured, and in many cases, as I've mentioned, so you have stores and you have, or you function in different countries, and it's very important to ask yourself some questions like, are we going to have different knowledge bases? Are we going to have different branding for the different brands, right? So do we, in Germany, do we activate with some specific branding? Do we offer some specific content? Do we offer, is it going to be any different in England or France or Spain or wherever you activate? Who are going to be the people handling support requests within all of these? So sorry. So sometimes customers need a multi-brand instance. So even if they have only one brand, because they have multiple countries managing and maintaining content differently and with different branding guidelines. So as mentioned earlier, to determine if you need just one brand or more, you'll need to think about the customer-facing part of Zendesk. So do you need different themes for your guide or for your knowledge base? Yeah, again, branding, is it any different in different countries? Are the URLs going to be different, like where you activate? Is the current governance different by country? And also keep in mind that adding multiple brands adds complexity in different areas, such as content and theme maintenance and content publishing and brand-specific web widgets. So the web widgets are, the widgets available from Zendesk, where users are able to browse a knowledge base or submit a request or request a chat or even request a phone call. Yeah, so now obviously there's now it's your turn. Like, tell us more about yourself, which we usually skip over, which we do now skip over because yeah, it's just me and talking to myself. All right. Now moving on, schedules. So in schedules, schedules in Zendesk, again, where do you offer support, right? So think about where which countries you operate, and if they are in different time zones, then yes, need to be thinking about whether your agents are going to be coming into the office at the same time, or they're going to be starting at different times, right? Because, for example, somebody in the UK, 9 o'clock is different from 9 o'clock from Central Europe, and then different from, I don't know, a North American time zone. So you have to opt for broadly applicable schedules to reduce long-term maintenance of holidays across schedules. Obviously, this is different from country to country and from company to company. Schedules in support help define workdays versus non-working days, and exact hours are less important. So, and then you need to evaluate for individual teams as part of an onboarding process. So this is something which is more onto you. Now we can obviously tell me more about this. And then now I go into Zendesk and I navigate to my schedule. So I am in here and in admin again, and I navigate to schedules and I go to add schedule. And now I add my time zone, and I want to do Berlin. And yeah, I can very easily, drag and drop this from whatever, let's say at 30 to, 6th, and do the same for the rest. Very easy drag and drop. I love this one. This one, maybe start 8:30, but finish at 2. Right, so now German schedule. I can go ahead and add my holidays. So whenever I know I have my bank holidays, which, for sure, it's going to be, Christmas, it's going to be New Year, it's going to be 1st of May, so Labor Day, and a bunch of other holidays, which I encourage you to go in here. And let's say Labor Day. Start date May 1st. And when does it end? It ends May 2nd. Confirm. Now go back to here, save. Right, so this has been added. I need to now apply this schedule for all tickets coming from Germany, right? So the way you do this is you streamline it by using a different, like an email address, which is specific to German, to Germany, and German users will send requests to that specific email address, a specific a German dedicated phone number, a chat department with chat agents that are dedicated to Germany, and so on and so forth. So this is all up to you. Again, okay, now it's your turn. And then organizational fields, I've shown you how to add them. But now it's important to go through some of the design principles. So before you go nuts and try to add too much information in there, yeah, you have to decide, of course, if you want to work with organizations or not. The use of organization is definitely optional. So, but if you do use them, your customers are going to be able to, you can keep track of what those organizations are requesting. And it's important to, know that if, for example, in specific areas, depending on how you use your organizations, you can create reports. And with those reports, you can see if you have some product issues and improve on those products. You can create, for example, notice that you have a delivery issue in Germany, and then talk to the partner who handles deliveries and fix that. Or, for example, you have you realize that some of your agents in a specific organizations need more training because they don't know how to support your customers, and they get a low customer satisfaction rating, so they get a lot of thumbs down. Or maybe you just need some more documentation, right? So your customers would be able to, if they read some articles, which if those articles exist, they read them, and then your agent's job is going to be easier, or maybe non-existent, because you have it documented and there's no need for customers to reach out. Okay, and also it expands the visibility of your organizations to reduce the number of duplicate tickets. How you organize your end users is entirely up to you, but however, a few examples of how this can be used is to support service level agreements, right? So how your SLAs, what commitments you have with your SLAs for your different types of customers, to track and manage tickets by company. So you have partner companies that reach out to you. You have Forwerk. Whenever somebody from Forwerk, it's a really big organization, and when it reaches out to you, you want to create some business rules or assign them to some specific group, or a specific person that deals with is, let's say, the account executive for that specific partner, and you want to streamline tickets to go directly there. So you reduce the agent reply time. And then to manage requests based on email domains, right? So I've shown you earlier how to add an organization and just add the domain name there. And whenever somebody writes with whichever email address, but it ends with @forwerk.de, it ends up in that organization. To support customers by location and language, which I've covered also and talked about. And so customers in different countries are able to receive support based on the language that they speak, and customers love when they are treated like that with the language that they are speaking. And defining access to the help center as well, like allowing access to different content types for more, let's say, not privileged, but more different types of users, right? So VIPs maybe just they paid more to have access to some additional support, which you can offer through user segmentation. So you can create organization and add end users manually, or you can bulk import these. More information about organizations. Now it's your turn. Please tell me more about your your organization. User fields. So yeah, I walked you through how to add those and some design principles for when you add these. So end users are the users who request support tickets, and they interact with Zendesk when they submit tickets. Regardless of the channel that they use, customers use to request support. So each customer must have an account, right? So an end user's account contains both required and optional information, right? So the more information you have about your customers, the better and faster you can support them. See the system user fields in here, right? So you can view this on Zendesk website. Think about the information that you need to have on your customers to make your agent's life easier, right? So without necessarily having to jump out of Zendesk and so for example, go into a backend and read like, okay, what is this guy's client type? Like, what is their address? What is their date of purchase, latest date of purchase? What product do they own, right? So it's the more context you have about your clients, the easier it is to support them. So think about you need for reporting on end user. So any fields that you need for reporting, for example, this is also very important. Some more information about your customers here and your user fields provided by Paul. And then, yeah, now it's your turn. Tell us more. What makes your business different and how does it work? Then I have what's next. So yeah, this is the next lesson. It's going to be the ticket design session. And this is usually done in 2 sessions like this one. Depends. I'm going to try to squeeze it all in one because yeah, but there's a lot of things to cover, to be honest. So the next is going to be this one. And thank you for taking part in this lesson. Yeah, for those of you who've made it this far, you're a champion, bro. Bros and brosettes. So I love you for being here. If you've made it so far, the password is blueberry pie. If you've seen the video, yeah, tell me this password and I will be so happy that you've watched it. And okay, so I know that's a lot of information, but right now it's important to understand how you do things and why you do things and understand these best practices. Now comes the part where you have to go in and do things yourself. So you have to go in and build these out yourself, and you also have to document these in a document, right? In the workbook that I shared with you, which I do want to go ahead and show you, which is going to be here. Let me share my screen for just 1 second. This is a document that you always get, and it's assuming that you already have access to it. I would just tell you like, hey, now you need to go into Zendesk, create whatever you need based on these lessons, like the training and this first lesson that we had. You have like 2 days, like you have a week, depends how much time you need. And then, yeah, you add everything into your configuration workbook. So this is the configuration workbook. And okay, so support ticket fields. Okay, so you will find everything in here. So chat triggers, wait a second. Let me see where this is in. Okay, so support agents, like add your agents in here. Organizations, add your organizations in here. Yeah, user organizations and end user field. So organizational field and our end user fields. Then add your groups in here. So also, again, I want to stress, and I can't stress enough how important it is for you to have everything documented. So whenever you go, if you, for example, need to change roles, somebody else is going to fill in your shoes, is going to have this at hand and have everything documented and yeah, look very nice. The one thing which I didn't go through and I need to is based on our slide deck, is the settings for agent settings and also customer settings. So let's go through these real quick because this is also very important. So agent properties, I have the enable the agent workspace. It's a different lesson in itself. I will go over it in another lesson. I do have some settings for example, for focus mode, for live agents. So whenever an agent, if this is activated, agents are not going to be bombarded with additional phone calls or chat requests until they have solved the ones that they're working on. The signature, I've shown you this, so it's already done. Email forwarding, so this is, again, depending on how your company works, but if this is enabled, your agent receives an email in his or her email account and forwards it to Zendesk. So the reason why I don't recommend this is because this would mean that you have you have a copy of a support request in your inbox and also one in Zendesk, and it encourages confusion because if you have them in two places, then you don't know exactly how these are, if, where, and how it has been replied. So I don't recommend necessarily keeping it. Organization list is enabled, so it allows your agents and your team members to view all organizations in one place. They can find it in their primary navigation. So this is agent setup and agent settings, which are important, and now customer. So this one has two tabs. So it has settings and then satisfaction. For satisfaction is another lesson in itself, so I won't insist here, but it's essentially allowing your customers to vote up or down, right? So if they are allowed to rate tickets, so if I deactivate this, right, so it all goes away. So if I enable it, I can ask for follow-up questions. Like, for example, if a customer says they had a bad experience, I can ask for an additional up to 5 reasons, like, why was this a negative experience? And they can tell me, like, maybe the issue took too long, or the issue was not resolved at all, or the agent's experience wasn't necessarily the best, or the agent's knowledge is unsatisfactory. Embed satisfaction score widget. This is a beta, which is going to go away soon because it's not necessarily the most reliant. So Zendesk is going to renounce it. So yeah, no, not so much interesting. So now settings for the customers. So anybody can submit a ticket. So if I disable this, there's a bunch of options that disappear, right? So I want everyone that has my email address can submit a ticket. So I can have, for example, an additional requirement from my customers to allow them to submit a ticket. So I can ask them to users to register. So if I ask them to register, this means that if they have not registered an account with me yet, with my Zendesk, then their ticket would end up in suspended, and until they validate their account, then they're not going to, that ticket that is in suspended will not surface into my regular views, so agents can pick it up. So the way that this works, whenever somebody unregistered sends in a request, they receive back an email saying like, hey, please validate your email in order for us to consider solving your request. So I have this additional step here to make sure that if I have spam bots that they do happen to try to sabotage your business, that does happen, then this precaution measure helps, and it's it stands like in the middle of asking users to register, which if they are human, they will be able to validate their email, and then require authentication for request uploads APIs. This is something which is a little bit more technical, and this is, I'm not going to go through it right now. User registration message. So whenever they register, it's by default, it's in English, right? So if you want to, for example, offer support in multiple languages, this needs to be translated with dynamic content, which I will go over tomorrow on how to, I know it's going to be tomorrow because I film from Tuesday to Friday, and tomorrow's Thursday. So I'm going to record the lesson for ticket data. So this is by default a text. And then I have an allow list. So if I don't allow everyone to submit a ticket, I can just allow some specific users that I want to offer support to, or some specific domains, right? So if I showed you earlier, for example, for Trade Republic.de, and then I have for Vorwerk.de, and only the people or only the users that have write to me from at one of these domains are able to submit tickets in my support system. Other ones no. Of course, I can block some of them if I don't necessarily want them to submit requests in here. Then account emails. So welcome email text. So this is, for example, for please check the link below to create a password and sign in, right? So this is by default. What a user receives when they are needed to validate their account. Also send a welcome email when the new user is created by an agent or administrator. So the way that you remember, I have created earlier an agent and an end user account. I did not receive any email in my inbox because I have this turned off. And this is the text related to that registration, which you can modify again with dynamic content. Okay, this is activated when this is worth having activated when I have multiple brands and I use multiple brands. And for example, when I create a new user and I don't necessarily ask them to, when I want them to register an account, I also follow up and ask them in that welcome email to say, which one of these accounts would you like to create a password and sign in for? And then allow users to view and edit their profile data. This is when users sign in, for example, into the guide and go to their profile to be able to maybe modify some ticket properties. Sorry, I'm starting to get a little bit tired. They are able to change like their name and their phone number. And this is recommended, yeah, if you want to have like this type of dynamic type of approach to your community. Allow users to change their password. Yes, why not? Of course, if they have trouble, why not change it? Validate user phone. I don't necessarily think this is a must, but yeah, it's good for them to, if they write in a phone number, they can receive an SMS and validate that number. Tags and on users and organizations. So allow administrators and agents to tag users and organizations. Remember what I shared, that if a user or an organization has a tag added to it, that tag will carry over to any of the tickets that that user or organization creates. And then allow users to belong to multiple organizations. Yes and no, depends. Depends on how you have your data structured, your customer structured. Alrighty, so that was it. It was a quite long lesson, but this is usually how long these lessons are, because there's a lot of information to cover. Now remember, this is information gathered within 8 years of experience and condensed into this 2-hour session. So I know it's yeah, maybe it's not going to be 2 hours, or it's going to be a little bit over. Depends. It's very important to have these lessons to do things right. You can also skip these types of commitments because I know what I'm doing, and me and my team know what we're doing inside Zendesk. So if you want to skip these lessons, that's fine, but this is not necessarily empowering you to be the best admin that you can be without necessarily depending on consultants to do these settings for you. So again, thank you for watching. Blueberry Pie is the code again. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.